when you go back 85 million years and you start a new life. It's great because there aren't a lot of people around, so that's good, but there are dinosaurs, and there's lots of them.
Herbivores and carnivores and huge ones, teeny tiny ones, flying ones.
There's a lot of predators. There's a lot of really big things out there.
They're a part of the fun and part of the danger and part of the thrill. There's just a visceral reaction we have to anything that might want to eat us.
They're fun, they're cool, they're threatening, and it's part of daily Cretaceous life.
The dinosaurs in Terra Nova are quite different than what we see in Jurassic Park because we've learned a lot since Jurassic Park.
We decided to embrace the most recent research about dinosaurs, which is they were more bird-like. They were no less ferocious and gigantic, but they had more bird-like qualities, feathers, brighter colorations.
It's been really, in the last 10 years, we've started finding dinosaurs with feather impressions. The dinosaurs that we see in Terra Nova now are much more like what we think dinosaurs actually look like. They're scientifically as accurate as we can get.
From design to movement and behavior, we've incorporated the latest research to create the most realistic dinosaurs that have ever been seen on television.
In the first season, we started off by seeing brachiosaurs. One of the first meetings I had with Spielberg about Terra Nova, he pitched a scene from his own experience. He took his family to the San Diego Zoo, and all these kids were lined up in a row feeding giraffes leaves. And he said they looked like they might as well have been dinosaurs.
It's like a giraffe. It's got a super long neck, and it's got like a cool mouth.
It's the first time we see a dinosaur. It's really exciting, and that dinosaur isn't like dangerous.
I think everybody expected that our first interaction with a dinosaur was going to be, you know, blood and guts and carnage, and thankfully it wasn't. That comes later.
What the hell is that? Carnotaurus. I hate Carnotaurus.
We knew we wanted to do a dinosaur car chase. We were trying to find a dinosaur that was like a T-Rex, but we didn't want to do anything that was so iconic.
The Carnotaurus, I think, somehow translates into meat-eating bull, and he had horns with this sort of mohawky feather pattern along the top of his head and the back of his spine. He's a really interesting, mean-looking fellow who was just right to face off with Slang.
Come on.
The Carnotaurs are particularly vicious. They're very fast. They can get you in any number of ways with their claws, with their fangs, or with their tails.
We're all clear!
It was the first man-eater you see in the show.
The Carnotaur is actually one of the few dinosaurs that actually comes from the right time.
Terra Nova is based 85 million years ago during the Cretaceous period because that is the time period that is the least defined fossil record. They only knew about 10% of what existed at that time.
It's the time we know the least about during the age of dinosaurs. It's the time when we have the least number of different species. It allowed us to have a point in time where we could invent dinosaurs.
We created something called an aceraptor, which means to slash in Latin, or a slasher as they're known around Terra Nova.
He has feathers around his eyes, and his joints are much more bird-like, and his nose is constructed from a type of bird we found.
They have a tail with barbs just all over it, and they use it as a weapon. And so they're incredibly dangerous because both ends are coming at you, and there's no running from them, really.
A real raptorial dinosaur. We think we're very much like birds in that they would start eating before they actually killed you. If you take that scenario and move it to slasher, which is nocturnal, that is really scary.
Brandon had the idea early on to do an episode that was an homage to Hitchcock's The Birds. There are some actual shots in that episode that are very specifically modeled on The Birds.
The episode Instinct. It was filled with pterosaurs, and it was the episode with the most creature shots we had.
This new species of pterosaur that we'd never come across before, which attacks the colony and behaves in a manner that we're not used to.
They're sort of like mini pterodactyls with an attitude because we are interrupting their reproductive cycle, and Terra Nova is built on their breeding ground, so they want it back.
they will mess you up, and they can find you wherever you are, and they can fit into tiny spaces.
What the hell is that?
I like the ovisaurs a lot that show up in the What Remains episode. Another made-up dinosaur, also based on the record.
Ovisaurs are sort of the size of a dog, and they're mangy, crazed, carnivorous dinosaurs that also happen to have an extreme liking for nickel.
They like to dig up nickel cables and chew on them. They're described as being like a catnip to them.
Those are the ugliest dogs I've ever seen.
Smithson, wake up! Smithson.
Nycoraptors were a dinosaur that we made up for episode, a bylaw. You know, the idea was sort of murder by dinosaur.
They describe them as sharks on legs. They've got a couple of rows of razor teeth that I think keep coming around and replacing like a great white, and they are vicious, scary.
They move pretty quick, so you really have to sort of chase them with a motorized vehicle, otherwise there's no way you could catch them.
We chase it into a forest, and it uses me as a springboard to get up a tree. I don't think any of us knew that dinosaurs could sort of skitter up trees, but apparently they can.
There's an ankylosaur, and we can't call it Ankylosaurus because Ankylosaurus lived 65 million years ago. We've given it a little different morphology. The spikes are a little different. The head shape is a tiny little bit different.
It's a classic riff on the story. Any child remembers when you walk in and go, "Mommy, I found a bird. It fell out of its nest. You know, will you save it?"
You can help it, right?
Yeah, of course we are, sweetheart, yeah.
It's nice to see the direct interaction between humans and dinosaurs in a way that you're not running for your life. You actually get to pet them and cuddle them, and they become a character.
You did it, Mommy.
When its mom shows up and you see how big it gets, that's not something you keep around the house. It wouldn't even fit in your house. There's no dinosaur that makes a good pet. Trust me. The largest dinosaur that we could find in the Cretaceous was called a spinosaur. It's like as big as a brachiosaurus, but it's a carnivore. And we made some modifications to it and called it an empyrosaur.
Most people would think of a T-Rex. T-Rex technically didn't exist during the Cretaceous period, so the empyrosaur was our big, slow, lumbering, traditional bipedal dinosaur.
You got a plan?
This dinosaur is so big that the head actually is above the tree lines.
It could easily snap the gates of Terra Nova.
In episode Proof, we created an ancestral Komodo dragon, which is an animal that exists today, but we just supersized him and we threw on a hood and a fin to, make him look cool.
They'll bite you and they'll inflict a venom, and then they'll hang about. When you're too weak to fight back, Komodo moves in, finishes the job.
Taylor sort of goes one-on-one and beats it at its own game.
It's not just the dinosaurs, but there's like poisonous plants everywhere, and it's the creepy crawlies.
Dragonflies back then were huge.
I really do hope that the day comes in this series when I can throw a 35 or 50 caliber machine gun on the back of a Triceratops and go riding around on it.
I'm really hoping to see a dinosaur that is a true chameleon, that we can just fade into the forest. But you won't know it's there until you get there.
It's fascinating to contemplate these beautiful creatures, and it's fascinating to imagine all the creatures we don't even know about.
I think people are drawn to them because they're the closest things we had to real land-dwelling, monstrous creatures, but they were really here.
Dinosaurs were different, they were big, they're gone, and they represent a time on our planet when everything was just completely different than it is right now. And we have them in Terra Nova.